Good morning, everybody. Good morning to another Mover Monday. It is October 4th, 2021, 6 o'clock a.m. on this Monday, Mover Monday, where we will be talking about you amazing mover, you window to this godlike experience that you are. It is Mover Monday. We will be going over some body magic tricks today, talking about you, this amazing mover that you are, introducing a concept every Monday. Some body magic tricks to make us feel so good from the inside out. I want to welcome you. I want to thank you for joining us, and I want to welcome you. Come in, have a seat, or walk around, or stand up. We are stretching our self-awareness like a muscle every weekday morning, feeling so good from the inside out. Better than your morning would feel without. Waking the worlds up, physically, mentally, spiritually, and then physically again. Why? To feel better. Objectively. How's that even possible? With the help of your only no-nonsense podcast, brought to you through the Best Feeling Network, and of course your only body, baby, your body from the inside out. As we stretch our self-awareness like a muscle, please allow all of these words to go in one ear and then out the other. As we are not really doing much, but just feeling amazing by using some body magic tricks. As in just using our self-awareness, moving that around, not even really doing much else. Wherever you are, whenever thou art, whether you are with your friends, whether you are alone, whether you are driving a car or whether you are driving a shopping cart, whether you are just waiting around in a waiting room, waiting to get your appointment done, or you are speaking to a doctor right now. I want to welcome you to the first podcast in 3D. First podcast in 3D. First podcast in 3D. As we invite you to please hold that controller properly with us, I invite you, we invite you in this simulation of ours in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath. We invite you to join us in holding that controller properly in this simulation of ours by understanding that in every human being's mind's eye, they pretend that there is a candle in front of their lips. Not just your own lips, but in front of every human being's lips, there exists a candle in which that person is trying to not put out. As we are trying to hold our controller together, the same way together, to understand each other better, to feel each other better, to have a stronger sense of this empathy thing. We pretend that there's a candle in front of not just our lips, but everybody's lips. And everybody is trying to individually not put their own candle out. They're not thinking about exhaling or thinking about inhaling, just simply the intention of trying to not put this candle out, which is about 1 to 2 inches in front of their lips. No matter where you are, whether you are alone or speaking with someone face to face, I challenge you today to pretend that there's a candle in front of both of our lips that we are both individually trying to not put out. You're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling, but you are thinking about how the tip of your tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. As you are remaining this candle in front of the lips, that you are not thinking about inhaling or exhaling, just trying to not put it out. And remembering that the back 1/3 of our tongues want to be vertical, up and down, up and down. Say it with me. Vertical, up and down, up and down. As we're remembering there is a candle in front of our lips that we're trying to not put out. We're not thinking about exhaling or inhaling. Simply that there is a candle in front of the lips that we're trying to not put out. And remembering that the tip of every person's tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, while the back 1/3 of their tongue is vertical, up and down, up and down. Say it with me, even if it's just in your head. Vertical, up and down, up and down. The back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical, up and down, up and down. And how does that feel for you? Don't just take my word for it, but how does that feel for you? Today is Mover Monday. We had a slower start. The internet was being so moody this morning. It's having somewhat difficulty connecting despite having a wired connection. But here we are for another hour for some guided breathing. Today on Mover Monday, we discuss another moving concept for you beautiful movers out there, in which society has brought upon us many misconceptions about ourselves. And what are we here to do on Pal Go On? Break those misconceptions down. Why? Just to be annoyed by things? No. Rather to feel free. To feel freer than free, to love life together as opposed to fearing death. As in loving the life from the choices we make and not from the limitations that we must live through or feel that we must survive through, but rather from the choices in which we feel free to make and we feel safe to overcome any kind of suffering. And how do we overcome any kind of suffering? That's right, kids. Pretending that there's a candle in front of the lips we're trying to not put out. And remembering that the tip of our tongues want to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, so that we can see ourselves in what we are in freedom and not what we are when we are trying to survive, when we are only bending to other rules to survive. We want to see ourselves for who we are in freedom and not who we are in shackles. Not who we are when we feel desperate to live, but rather who we are when we feel full of life. And what choices do we make at that point? And how do we look at ourselves? On Mover Monday, we introduce yet another concept to take another good look at ourselves. And what are we looking at today? The fact that there is two versions of you. Herbie, what do you mean there are two versions of you? As in, like, there's like the front side and the back side of me? As in, there's like a doppelganger of me out there? As in my alter ego online? My MySpace account? My Tinder profile? There's two versions of me. My 6'15" profile? My 6'15" Tinder profile? Oh, my MySpace page? My Zanga persona? My TikTok? What do you mean there are two versions of you, Herbie? As in, literally like the yin and yang. There are two versions of you, the unconscious and the forward conscious. For the last 200 years, there have been extensive studies into the internal representation of the human being. And the internal representation of the human being happens to segment itself into what parts of the body concerns itself with different aspects of the human consciousness, into fragments such as the front of the tongue being associated with the conscious part of you, and the back half of the tongue being associated with the subconscious part of you. Sort of like how the top half of you is associated with the conscious side of you, as well as the bottom side of you is associated, as in the hip joints and down, are associated with the unconscious and subconscious parts of you. But they are both still you, which is represented in media. We find everywhere something we find paradoxical yet continuously butts its head into modern culture is the idea of this duality. The two versions of you. Chaos and order, yin and yang. Yin and yang being two completely separate aspects, but together creating an all new but togethered aspect altogether. United aspect together. Similarly, the unseen version of you and the seen version of you coalesce together to make all of you. The unseen version of you, as in all of your emotions, thoughts, ambitions, all of those things, those inner workings of your inner consciousness. And then the seen version of you, what is actually expressed out to the outside world. Not just your body language and where you are, but also the statements that you make, the ideas that you exude out to the world. The physicalities you exude out to the world, whether that be your body language or the clothes you are wearing or where you place yourself in the room, everything about that represents you, this seen version of you, all originating from this unseen version of you coming from the inside, this chaotic version of all of us on the inside in which we cannot see, we cannot know for sure, therefore remains chaotic in nature, however, is still part of us just as much as the orderly side of us, the physical side of us, is really part of us as well. You versus you on Mover Monday. Not only can we confirm that there is a you versus you, a yin and yang in culture, but in the last 200 years or so, there has been extensive research into the internal representation of human beings regarding their own makeup, the structure and function and size of their own body, has led to the discovery that certain aspects of our body prefer to be associated with certain aspects of our consciousness. As in, the back half of our tongue prefers to be associated and prefers to be activated by our unconscious and subconscious selves, while the front half of our tongues tend to be associated with our conscious selves, the selves that we can see, the selves that end up getting expressed to the outside world. Similarly, the muscles activated within the inside self tend to be more related to the unconscious and the subconscious, the deeper, closer towards the center of the body you get, hence the core. When people say, speak with your gut, go with your gut instinct, we know it represented in the way that we view life, that we notice a duality in human beings. In ourselves, there is two versions of us. There is the you versus you, mind versus heart. We've recognized since the dawn of time that human beings have this duality, good and evil, all coming from our perspective of the entire world, which is ourselves, as we perceive the entire world through our own bodies. So we see this pattern represented everywhere, that there is this you versus you. Why is that significant? Herbie, on pal, go on. As in on Mover Monday, we talk about some misconceptions brought onto us by ourselves sometimes in society, our need to fit in. We recognize that there is this you versus you. There's this us versus us, as in the you on the inside that is unknown versus that is cannot be seen, the unseen you versus the seen version of you, what ends up being represented, what you end up doing on the outside. We recognize this. And so in a world right now so full of depression, we are so afraid of being alone. Would it not be because when you are alone, you cannot gauge any kind of progress, you cannot understand any kind of relationship with one thing by itself? Even in mathematics, there is identity formulas, which simply state that 1 equals 1 or an object equals itself. Why must that exist? For a comparison of one's own identity, to ensure what one's identity is and whether that identity has changed. Similarly, like all things, math is represented everywhere. Science is everywhere, right? Trust this science. Like all things represented in the science and in math happens to be represented in our bodies, as we know, first and foremost, as we find peculiarities about the world through our own bodies, first and foremost. And in nature and in our own lives, are we not always comparing ourselves to ourselves? What is that? The ideal version of what we know we could be versus what we end up outputting. There is the you versus you. We struggle against ourselves all the time, struggle to be the best version of ourselves, seeking to be whatever the heck that means. How could you have a best version of yourself if you had no other version of yourself to begin comparing that thing? There must be a separate entity on the outside to begin comparing it. In this world, we were lied to. Growing up in this postmodern world, thinking that it's just you in that body, however it is you, and another version of you in that body, and that is significant as there is a relationship that can be created, which means that you can strengthen thyself from yourself, within yourself, with this relationship. There is human hope for human strength in and of itself. Not because one thing grows and grows and grows, not because you are one thing that grows and grows and grows, limitless, unable to even understand what that even means, as one thing simply just grows. But instead you are a relationship between two things, you and another version of yourself. Your actuated version versus your potentiated potential version of yourself, giving you a relationship that can continue to grow and understand itself. Give itself friction to struggle against, to actually grow itself. When there is no you versus you, there is just a you, this idea of a you floating in space. Well, there is then no struggle that you can ever compare yourself to. Every struggle is completely new. We'll be right back after this break to talk about why you versus you gives you the struggle that you need to become the best version of you. We'll be right back with that view. Please pretend there's a candle. Ooh. All the best things in life are free. Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. I wanted to let that one play out a little bit longer. That was just feeling so good. Felt like it felt right. This has been Japanese onsen. Water sounds with piano, flute, and koto music for sleep meditation study. By the user New Bliss on YouTube. Welcome back, welcome back. Come in, come in, come in. If you would, please. I challenge you to pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips. Both of our lips. That you're trying to not put out. I challenge you to remember that the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical, up and down. Up and down. And I challenge you to observe how your sense of self feels as you remember that the tip of your tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. You don't need to think about exhaling or inhaling, but just simply bringing into our awareness where the tip of the tongue wants to be, the relationship with the candle. How are you doing right now? As we stretch our self-awareness like a muscle and dive into some identities about ourselves. You versus you, baby. Where are you right now? How art thou? Are you walking the dog? Are you dropping the kids off to school? You're working on some homework? Have you been able to ask how you are feeling lately? If you were taking things at the pace that you were comfortable with? Not just for how you feel, but for what you want to do in the future? What has it felt like to be you lately in that amazing body of yours? That amazing window to this godlike experience of yours in which you can feel so good from the inside out simply by improving this relationship with remembering that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. How do you feel today? Are you ready to dive right back in? I was talking to my cousin. I was speaking to my cousin the other morning about some massively online multiplayer games. Lots of people on these video games. Every few so years, Here comes a giganto video game trying to take all of the chips again, trying to learn from all the previous mistakes and implement a new and better game with everything they've learned from what people have told them that they liked or didn't like about these previous games. They try to come out with this new, completely new franchise that totally patches up all of the concerns that everybody has had about every game in this genre forever. They want to make the super game. Every so years, they want to make a super game. Now, some companies will make the same game over and over. You have Nintendo. You have Square Enix been making Final Fantasy. Nintendo been making Mario since dinosaurs were around. That's where they got Mario's pet inspired from, was the local wildlife. So there are some companies which are doing the same thing forever, but every few years you have some other companies who try to come in and like a tsunami, come in and totally upset the entire ecosystem by creating the mega game. The mega game, right? With all the new sorts of features, more people, more abilities, more things that would just convenience you, more things. Patching up all the problems, so to speak, with all these other games. Oh, you don't like Mario, you don't like this game, patching up all those problems. Always saying that this next one will be the best game. It will patch all these problems. However, all those problems that were in Mario, that were in Zelda, that were in Final Fantasy, that were in possibly these multiplayer games that are not the ones that I just listed, but like in Guild Wars and World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy 14, all of these games that they're trying to patch these problems, they say they want to patch these problems. The problems are never exactly the same because it is a new game. Problems that existed within one game are problems within that game. Creating an entire new game and trying to patch, so to speak, those problems is misshooting on those problems, as they are problems unique to that game, in the same way that you have problems in your life that are unique to you. And even if they look similar to somebody else or somebody on the outside's problems, they're never, ever, ever 100% completely yours, because your experience is impossible to replicate. In the same way that a video game's value, the way people see a video game is multifaceted, not just in the way the game is, but the way the game exists in the culture at the time. What games were there at the time? So what niche does this game fill? What needs were being filled? Sometimes the fact that this game existed and tried to fill these needs makes it so that those same needs are no longer seen as sought after or problems that need to be solved in future games. The fact that a game even existed to have that problem means that another game, if it has a similar problem, it's never the same exact problem, because those games do not exist in vacuums. Humans like you do not exist in vacuums. So whatever problem that you are experiencing can only be related to yourself again. No matter how similar looking to other people. Hence the identity formulas in math. 1 equals 1. I equals I. Herbie equals Herbie. You equals you. Why is that important? Because you equals you, so that the problems that you have can be related to by somebody. You. This inner version of you that can be made to have a relationship with thyself, so one can start to relate and understand how these problems are affecting you and how one should go about with those problems and solving those solutions. Because it's true, no one will ever understand your problems completely except for you. Because you are that only, even in a twinship, even if you are twins with somebody, that is still a relationship in which one person is that twin and that person is that twin, and their relationship is literally will never be the same because they created this relationship with one another. They will never overlap because they exist. And as such, they always will have individual problems. Oh my God, that's so scary, because who do you have to relate to when there's nobody else out there that can understand your problems? We reiterate on ourselves. You be Mario, you be Zelda, you be Final Fantasy. Nintendo and Square Enix and giganto corporations like that did not get large by creating and inventing out of thin air foreign concepts that everybody just magically latched onto, but rather iterated over and over and over and over on the same idea, the same way that we iterate on ourselves over and over and over on our same ideas to become better versions of ourselves. But who decides what to do that? A separate version of yourself to decide how to make that other version of yourself better. A you versus you. The only identity that matters. The only relationship that matters. The relationship with the self. If there's nothing else, this is the God relationship. The fact that one thing can be compared to itself is a God relationship, is the God relationship that we all talk about. What do you mean, Herbie? You like this sky god? This sky god shooting laser beams down at you? No, not this sky god shooting laser beams down at you. But this ability to see the self in order to identify the self, which is the only relationship that matters. You notice in cartoons and movies how they can all have such disparate and different art styles and musical themes, and yet we can appreciate all of them. Maybe not all at the same time, but we can appreciate all these different types of art styles. And if you're a great artist, you can make different art styles mesh with different art styles by using more different nuances in particular art styles. And you can do this with cooking. You can augment different dishes with different spices so that we can taste a bunch of different spices, but for this specific dish, all of them together in contrast with itself creates a dish that we can enjoy. Similarly, when we watch movies and we look at art, there is no one particular art form that is going to be attracting us, but that specific art form, whether it be Mario, Zelda, or some movie like Mission Impossible, its self-awareness, its relationship with itself allows us to dive into it and believe into it and suspend our disbelief. Whether that be the art form, whether that be the music style, any sort of presentation within itself. Is there any objective color that we like? Is there any objective size of character that we like? Style of character do we like? Or do we just like styles that see themselves, that are cohesive with itself, that have balance with itself? What is balance if not a relationship with ourselves, with itself? An ability to see a relationship with itself, to balance, would be this godlike thing. This godlike thing. As there is no entity that even knows about another entity. There's no movie that even should know about another movie, but this movie, self-contained in on itself and how much its style knows of itself, is godly. We'll be right back to talk about this godly nature of ourselves, of you, of there being two versions of you. There being two versions of you, helping the other one get stronger like a ladder forever. We'll be right back. Please pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And become aware of the fact that the tip of the tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. We'll be right back. Now go on. versions of you. Feeling so good, good. From the inside, inside, out, out. Better than your morning would feel without. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. I challenge you today to pretend there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Not just your lips, but every person's lips, every human being's lips that you become aware of today, whether that be in your mind's eye, or right in front of you, or me, or yourself. Any human being, I challenge you today to pretend that there's a candle in front of their lips that that human being is trying to not put out. And they're not trying to exhale or inhale, but rather simply thinking about the candle that they're trying to not put out. Just putting it into their awareness no matter what they're doing, whether they are walking, diving, jumping, doing backflips, doing monkey bars, free jumping, base jumping, parachuting, paragliding, eating a smoothie, delivering a baby, being a baby. I challenge you to pretend that there's a candle in front of each human being's lips that they're trying to not put out no matter what they're doing. And furthermore, I challenge you to remember that the tip of our tongues want to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth, always at all times, and not thinking about exhaling or inhaling, but just placing those relationships with your body into your awareness. Why, Herbie? Why, Herbie? Why should we do all of those things? Well, simply so we can calibrate together and live together in the similar awareness in this simulation of ours in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath. So I invite you to lock fingers with me in your awareness by pretending that there is a candle in front of my lips that I am trying to not put out. While the tip of my tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. And the back 1/3 of my tongue wants to be, say it with me, vertical, up and down, up and down. Again, say it with me, vertical, up and down, up and down. And how does that feel for you? There is this you before you, and so there is this you versus you. We like to conceive ourselves as being alone in the world. In religion and media and culture, which is longhand for cult, remember? In our families and our friendships, we like to see ourselves as alone. So when we get stronger, we are just this balloon that gets stronger. This balloon that gets pumped up, pumped up. We don't like to believe that we have two versions of us living right within us, the same way that an exhale and an inhale are both part of a breath, but are distinct parts. The same way that the front of the tongue is associated with the conscious part of your body and mind, and the back half of the tongue is associated with the subconscious and unconscious part of your mind and body. There is two versions of you. You are not this balloon that is inflating as you get stronger, but you are a relationships of two people. You are the relationship of two people, not just mentally and spiritually, but physically as well. As scientists have discovered, different aspects of your body are associated with the two different aspects of you. The unseen part of you and the seen part, the chaotic side versus you versus the ordered side, the good versus the quote-unquote evil side, which could just also be called imbalance. Pain, which is not an enemy when we can use pain as an indicator as to how to better balance ourselves. There is the you versus you. There is the you before you. You are not this inflating balloon that inflates all alone, but rather a relationship between two people, relationship between a north and a south, like two sides of a stick, which allow that stick to orient towards the other sides forever and spin forever. possibly faster and faster, due to there being two sides of it with equal amounts of intention. Two versions of you. Did you know that the top half of you is actually separate from the bottom half of you in your internal representation? Starting at the hip joints, the bottom half of you represents or is mostly aligned with the subconscious and unconscious parts of you, whereas the top half of your body, starting at the hip joints, is usually associated with the conscious parts of you. As we are finding more and more and more gold. It's a gold mine of undiscovered body magic tricks coming up. Once you find one, how many more are there? I invite you to pretend that there's a candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. I invite you to remember that the tip of your tongue wants to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth right now. And don't just take my word for it, but how does it feel for you? Don't just take my word for it, but how does that feel for you? Two versions of yourself, a you versus you. What could that possibly mean? How much is that dynamic different than a one version of you simply alone? When it comes to dealing with hardship, when it comes to dealing with suffering, how does it resonate with you to feel that there are two versions of you when it comes to dealing with suffering in life? How does it resonate with you, the idea that there are two versions of you, there are two yous, not just mentally and spiritually, but physically? Do we ever find ourselves physically acting in ways that seem out of our nature? Is there a you versus you? We'll be right back after this short break. Because to have a relationship, don't you need two people? We'll be right back after this short break. There is a you versus you. There is a you versus you. Welcome to the last quarter of the show. Welcome to the height of the show where we really break into it here on Padawan. Welcome back to the last quarter of the show. There is a you versus you. Have you ever noticed? You can load? You can load your legs in order to get ready for that big jump? You ever notice you can load your arm when you're trying to get ready to do that big punch? You're holding yourself back, gathering more energy until you can finally release that strong punch. You notice how that takes a little bit of time? Have you ever noticed how you cannot relax immediately when you want to release tension from your body? When you even want to just get rid of tension from your body, when you want to take tension away from your body? Have you ever noticed you cannot immediately relax, but rather the longer you relax, the more relaxed your relaxation becomes? There is a you versus you. When you are loading that punch, when you are loading that kick, what exactly is adding that energy into that body of yours? Something needs to be added into your body. What is adding that into your body? When you are relaxing in your hammock and you are slowly becoming more relaxed, what is releasing the tension from your body, as it does not get all released all at once, like a shirt? But something is slowly releasing the tension as your body slowly backs off of the feeling of being tense, right? How about when you're done sprinting? Does your body immediately exude all of that heat and is regulated? No. But rather your body slowly lets go. Slowly lets go of control. You begin to burn out your exercise. You walk slower, but you don't immediately end your exercise because something is limiting the amount that you are releasing into your body. Something is limiting the amount that which your body is straining on itself. There is resistance onto you from you, right? The you versus you. We live in a world absent of hope these days. Who the heck is selling hope? Nobody out there selling hope. Why? We live in a world right now believing that you are just you. There is no you versus you on the inside. But what does it mean if there is a you versus you on the inside? If there are two people on the inside, if there are two yous on the inside, one version of you exerting the force, maybe, and one version of you releasing the tension, maybe. One version of you exhaling, maybe, and one version of you inhaling, maybe. What does it mean if there's another version of you in there? What does it mean if there's two versions of you in there? What does it mean if there are two versions of you in there? Well, doesn't that mean that whatever you are going through, you can decide to place the weights stronger or place the weights weaker when we do bodybuilding? Do not we get stronger and we place more weights on ourselves as we get stronger to improve our strength? But we would never put ourselves immediately to the most highest maximum weight that we know we cannot even begin lifting. However, what we do is we start off weak, right? And as we get stronger, we slowly increase the amount of weights, right? Similarly, in our body, if there is another version of you inside deciding how much to rest, how much you're allowed to rest, how much force you are allowed to output, then similarly, do you not have another person in there deciding how much weight is on you right now? And so as you get stronger, do you not decide are you not able to decide as a human being to then place more weight on yourself? Metaphorically, if you are now strengthening yourself through your life with this relationship with you versus you, the other version of you now gets to decide, as we know, not just spiritually and mentally, but physically, we are also just battling this you versus you. As in when you're outputting this strength, something is loading up that strength within you. When you are relaxing, something is deciding how much to allow yourself to relax at this moment. There's a relationship between you and this version of you that is permitting yourself to give yourself energy or release that energy. That other version of you watching you. And so if you have that other version of you already in you, the best things in life are free. And if you have that thing from within you, do you not get to decide if you want to get stronger then to simply do what you would do in bodybuilding, which is just place more weights? And are you not in control of that now that there is two of you? The workouter and the workoutee placing more weights if they want to get stronger than thee, whether that be physically, spiritually, or mentally. there is that you versus you. Meaning there is that version of you deciding how much to release energy if you want to relax, but also how much friction to put on you if you need to get stronger. If you want to get stronger, if you want to overcome, there is that version of you on the inside that knows you from the inside out. So it can help you place the right amount of weights on you. As we are getting stronger, as we are achieving world peace through individual inner peace and inner strength, I invite you today to hold that controller with me properly. In this simulation of ours in which we die every 5 minutes, but that timer is reset with a breath, I invite you to pretend that there's a candle in front of our lips, both of our lips, everybody's lips, that we're all trying to not put out. To hold this controller properly in this world of ours, to calibrate our breathing together properly, to avoid misunderstanding as we achieve world peace through individual inner strength and peace. I invite you to pretend that there's a candle in front of everybody's lips that they're trying to not put out. I challenge you to remember that the tips of your tongues want to be anchored to the back of the bottom front teeth. I challenge you to remember that the back 1/3 of your tongue is vertical, up and down, wherever you are out there. I challenge you to join me in remembering that, say it with me, the weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. Again, it's weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. The weight-bearing portion of the spine is the front. Remember to allow your weight to be delivered down the front of your spine into those rainbow arches like all of the times. Continue to keep the front of your shins into your awareness, my friends and family. And remember that you do not sit on your legs. Whether you are coming from TikTok, whether you're coming from Instagram, whether you're coming from Twitter, whether you're coming from Discord, I want to thank you so much for coming through. I want to thank you for locking fingers with me in your awareness today. And I hope you have a supercharged morning. YouTube, thank you so much. D-Live, thank you so much. Twitch, love you so much. Thank you so much. Any comments, likes, and subscribes help us immensely, guys. Shares and likes and subscribes. We appreciate all of the engagement. It's been so fun interacting with everyone. All the well wishes. All of the head scratches. We love you guys so much. We'll see you tomorrow on True Love Tuesday. Thank you for joining us on Mover Monday, where we talk about you versus you. So you get to decide how much pressure you put on yourself. How strong do you want to be? How free do you want to be? How happy do you want to be? How much do you want to love life? How much do you not want to fear death? I hope you're calibrating with me and locking fingers with me into your awareness today by pretending there's a candle into your awareness in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Thank you for joining. Shout out Lil Seki. Thank you for joining. All comments and stuff like that will be here at the end as well. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for coming through. We appreciate you. Have a good one out there. Please do not sit on your legs. Please do not sit on your legs, you fools. We love you guys. See ya. See you tomorrow on Pago on. Bow, 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 go on. Bow, 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 go on. Bow, chicka, go on.